"Get this man out of my building." The command echoed through the marble lobby like a death sentence. Ethan Cole stood his ground, 8-year-old Lily's hand gripping his tighter as two security guards moved closer. He raised his phone with a trembling hand, the magazine photo glowing on the cracked screen. "Then explain why my dead wife's photograph is hanging in your mansion, Mr. Grant." The billionaire froze mid-step, his polished shoe hovering above Italian marble. His ice-blue eyes locked onto the screen, and for 3 long seconds the only sound was the fountain in the center of the lobby and Lily's frightened breathing. 12 hours earlier, Ethan had been a different man. Well, not different exactly, still broke, still exhausted, still working 2 jobs to keep food on the table and a roof, however leaky, over their heads. But he'd been a man who understood his life, even if that life was hard. He'd known his story: widowed father, struggling but surviving. Raising his daughter alone because 3 years ago, a drunk driver had stolen the love of his life. He'd known all of that with absolute certainty, until Lily came home from her friend's house carrying a magazine. Now, standing in Alexander Grant's corporate headquarters with security closing in and his daughter's fingernails digging into his palm, Ethan didn't know anything anymore. "Daddy, I'm scared," Lily whispered, pressing herself against his leg. Her backpack held together with duct tape scraped against his worn jeans. Ethan squeezed her hand 3 times. "Their code, I love you." The taller security guard reached for Ethan's arm. "Sir, you need to leave before we call the police." "Call them." Ethan's voice cracked, but he didn't move. "Call them and explain why a billionaire has a portrait of my wife in his private library. A wife who died 3 years ago. A wife who worked as a waitress and never mentioned knowing anyone with money." Alexander Grant hadn't moved. He stood 15 feet away, expensive suit probably worth more than Ethan's car, face carved from stone, but something flickered in those cold eyes. Recognition, maybe, or guilt. "Let me see that photo." Grant's voice cut through the tension like a blade. The security guards hesitated. Grant extended his hand, palm up, and Ethan walked forward. Every eye in the lobby watched him. Businesspeople in tailored suits, assistants with designer bags, the receptionist with her perfectly manicured nails hovering over the phone. They all saw him the same way: poor man in a thrift store jacket, making a scene, probably crazy. Let them look, let them judge. He'd stopped caring about shame a long time ago. Ethan held out his phone. Grant took it carefully, like it might explode. His eyes scanned the screen, and Ethan watched every micro-expression that crossed that handsome, privileged face. Surprise, confusion, then something deeper: pain. "Where did you get this?" Grant's voice had lost its sharp edge. "Architectural Digest, March issue, inside Alexander Grant's historic Boston estate. Page 47. Ethan had the page memorized, had stared at it for 6 hours straight while Lily slept, trying to make sense of the impossible. Grant's jaw tightened. He looked from the phone to Ethan's face, then down to Lily. His expression shifted when he saw her, softening in a way that made Ethan's chest ache. "How old is she?" Grant asked quietly. 8, and that's my wife, Hannah Cole. She died when Lily was 5. Grant's eyes returned to the phone, and Ethan saw his throat work as he swallowed. When he finally looked up, his voice was barely above a whisper. "We need to talk, privately. I'm not leaving my daughter." "I wouldn't ask you to." Grant turned to his receptionist. "Cancel my 3 o'clock. Have Victoria meet me in my office immediately." Then to the security guards, "They're my guests. Anyone asks, they're expected." The guards stepped back like they'd been slapped. Grant gestured toward the elevator bank. "Please, I promise I'll explain everything." Ethan had learned not to trust promises, but he'd come here for answers, and this cold billionaire seemed to have them. He nodded once and followed Grant into an elevator paneled in wood that probably cost more than Ethan's annual salary. The ride to the 20th floor was silent, except for the whisper of machinery and Lily's soft humming, her nervous habit. Ethan's mind raced. How did Hannah know this man? Why had she never mentioned him? What secrets had his wife carried to her grave? If you're already hooked on this story, hit that subscribe button, because what happens next will shock you even more. The truth about Hannah's hidden life is darker and more complicated than anyone could have imagined. Grant's office looked like something from a movie. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Boston Harbor, original artwork on the walls, furniture that belonged in a museum. And there, on the credenza behind his massive desk, another photo. Hannah, different from the one in the magazine but unmistakably her. Younger, maybe early 20s, laughing at something off camera. The frame was silver, engraved, positioned where Grant would see it every time he sat at his desk. Ethan's legs went weak. He'd thought maybe the magazine photo was a mistake, a coincidence, someone who just looked like Hannah. But this was intentional. This was personal. Sit, please. Grant gestured to a leather sofa that probably cost more than Ethan's car and rent combined. Ethan sat, Lily crawling into his lap. She was getting too big for this, but he needed to hold her, needed to feel her solid weight against his chest. Real, she was real. Everything else was crumbling into questions. Grant moved to the credenza and picked up the framed photo with hands that shook slightly. Hannah Morrison, that's what we knew her as. She saved my father's life. The words hung in the air like smoke. Ethan blinked. What? 15 years ago, my father Marcus Grant had a heart attack at a charity gala. Hannah was working the event catering staff, I think. She performed CPR, stayed with him until the paramedics arrived. The doctors said if she'd been even 2 minutes slower. Grant's voice caught. He cleared his throat. She gave us 5 more years with him, 5 years we wouldn't have had. Ethan's mind spun. 15 years ago, Hannah would have been 23, before they'd met, before they'd fallen in love, before Lily. She never told me. The words came out strangled. My father tried to find her afterward, to thank her properly, to help her, but she disappeared, changed her number. We lost touch. Grant set the photo down carefully. When he died 3 years ago, he made me promise to keep looking, to find the woman who saved him and make sure she was taken care of. 3 years ago, the same year Hannah died. She's gone, Ethan said. Car accident, drunk driver ran a red light. Grant's face went pale. He sank into the chair across from the sofa, all that billionaire composure cracking. No, that's not. We've been searching. I hired investigators. If she was dead, they would have. He stopped, staring at Ethan. Cole. She was Hannah Cole when she died. We were looking for Hannah Morrison. She changed her name when we got married. Silence filled the room like water, drowning them both. The office door opened. A woman in her 60s entered, elegant in a way that spoke of old money and careful maintenance. Her silver hair was swept into a neat bun, her eyes sharp and intelligent. She stopped when she saw Ethan and Lily, her gaze moving from them to Grant. Alexander, what's going on? Mother, this is Ethan Cole. And his daughter. Grant paused, looking at Lily. Lily, Ethan said quietly. Lily, Grant repeated. They're Hannah Morrison's family. The woman, Victoria Grant, went absolutely still. Her hand rose to her throat. Hannah, you found her. She's dead, Mother, 3 years ago. Victoria's face crumpled. She grabbed the back of a chair for support. No, Marcus wanted, we needed to. Her eyes landed on Lily and filled with tears. Oh, sweet child, you look just like her. Ethan's arms tightened around his daughter. Lily shifted uncomfortably, confused by these strangers who seemed to know her mother better than she did. Victoria moved closer, then stopped, seeming to remember herself. I apologize, this is overwhelming, may I? She gestured to the sofa. Ethan nodded, and Victoria sat beside them, her perfume subtle and expensive. Your wife, she said softly, was an extraordinary person. She didn't just save Marcus's life that night. She visited him in the hospital, came to our home to check on his recovery. My husband was a difficult patient, but Hannah had a way with him. She made him laugh. Victoria's smile was watery. He wanted to pay for her education. She was training to be a nurse, but she was so proud, so determined to do it herself. She only let him help a little. With textbooks, she said, though I suspect Marcus did more than that without telling her. Ethan felt like he was hearing about a stranger. Hannah had been a nurse when they met, yes, working at the hospital where his brother David had been taken after the overdose. But she'd never mentioned a wealthy family helping her through school, never mentioned saving anyone's life. How long did she visit? Ethan heard himself ask. Victoria's eyes grew distant. 5 years, she became like a daughter to us. Alexander was just a teenager then, but he adored her. She was the older sister he never had. She looked at her son. Do you remember the Christmas she taught you to ice skate? Grant's jaw worked. He nodded but didn't speak. What happened? Ethan asked. Why did she stop coming? Victoria and Alexander exchanged a look, a long one. She met someone, Victoria said carefully. A man. Marcus warned her he was troubled. They argued. Hannah was young, in love, stubborn. She stopped visiting, stopped answering our calls. Pain crossed her elegant features. We lost her, and Marcus never stopped regretting it. Never stopped hoping she'd come back. A man, troubled, Ethan's blood turned to ice in his veins. What was his name? But he already knew. Somehow he already knew. Victoria's silence was answer enough. David. Ethan's voice came from somewhere far away. David Cole, my brother. Victoria's sharp intake of breath confirmed it. Hannah had known David, had loved David, before she'd ever met Ethan. The room tilted. Ethan's grip on Lily became the only thing keeping him anchored to reality. David, who died of an overdose 12 years ago. David, whose funeral was where Ethan had first met Hannah. They'd both been grieving, both been lost, both been desperate for comfort. She'd never said she knew David before that day, never said she'd loved him, never said she'd lost a wealthy family because of him. I think I'm going to be sick, Ethan whispered. Victoria's hand rested gently on his shoulder. Mr. Cole, I know this is a tremendous shock, but you must understand, Hannah loved you. Whatever happened with David, whatever mistakes she made, she chose you, she married you, she gave you this beautiful daughter. Lily looked up at her father, her eyes wide and worried. Daddy, what's wrong? He forced himself to breathe, to smile, to lie. Nothing, baby, I'm okay. But he wasn't okay. He'd built his entire life on the foundation of their love story. Chance meeting at a funeral, grief bringing them together, healing each other, building something beautiful from tragedy, except it hadn't been chance. It hadn't been their first meeting. Hannah had known David intimately, had loved him first, and she'd never said a word. Why are you telling me this? Ethan's voice came out harsh. Why now? Alexander leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Because my father left something for Hannah in his will, a substantial trust fund for any children she might have. He never stopped loving her like a daughter, even after she disappeared, even after the argument. His eyes moved to Lily. That trust belongs to your daughter. $2 million held in investment accounts, growing for the last 3 years while we searched for Hannah. $2 million. The number was so absurd Ethan almost laughed. He was 3 months behind on rent, had $27 in his checking account, had skipped lunch for the past week so Lily could have breakfast and dinner. $2 million. I don't want your money, he said. It's not my money, it's Lily's, my father's final wish. Built on lies, on a life Hannah kept secret from me. Built on love, Victoria said firmly. Marcus loved Hannah like a daughter. That love doesn't disappear because she made mistakes or kept secrets. And you'll forgive me for being blunt, Mr. Cole, but that little girl deserves security. She deserves education, opportunities, a future without poverty. Ethan looked down at Lily's worn sneakers, the ones he'd bought at a thrift store because new ones were $60 he didn't have. At her jacket with the broken zipper he'd tried to fix with a safety pin, at her brave smile that never complained even though he knew other kids had so much more. I need time, he said, to think, to process. Of course. Alexander stood and pulled a business card from his desk. My personal number, call any time, day or night. Ethan took the card with numb fingers. He stood, Lily sliding off his lap, and turned toward the door. Mr. Cole. Victoria's voice stopped him. May I ask you something? He turned. Did Hannah ever talk about us? About Marcus? About those years? Ethan wanted to lie, to spare this elegant woman's feelings, but he was so tired of lies. Never, not once. Victoria's face crumpled, but she nodded. Thank you for your honesty. They rode the elevator down in silence, walked through the lobby where people still stared, pushed through the glass doors into the cold Boston afternoon. Ethan's car was parked 3 blocks away because he couldn't afford the garage, and the walk felt endless. Lily's hand in his was warm, real. His, Daddy, she asked as they reached the rusty Honda. Are we rich now? He unlocked the door, helped her into her booster seat. I don't know, baby. Is that why Mommy's picture is in that man's house? Because she knew him? Yeah, a long time ago. Before us, before us. Lily was quiet as he buckled her in. Then, do you think Mommy had secrets? The question hit him like a fist. He knelt beside the car, eye level with his daughter. Everyone has secrets, Lily. Even you, even me. What's your secret? That I'm terrified, that I don't know who your mother really was, that everything I thought was real might be a lie. That sometimes I eat the last cookie and blame it on you, he said instead, booping her nose. She giggled. I knew it. He closed her door and walked around to the driver's side. The car smelled like old French fries and the vanilla air freshener that had stopped working months ago. He sat behind the wheel, key in the ignition, but didn't start the engine. His phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Mr. Cole, this is Victoria Grant. I forgot to mention something important. Please call when you can. It's about Hannah's final wishes. Final wishes. Like Hannah had known she was going to die. Ethan's hands shook as he started the car. The engine coughed twice before catching. He pulled into traffic, mind spinning. That night, after Lily was asleep in her bed, really a mattress on the floor because the frame had broken and he hadn't replaced it yet, Ethan sat at their tiny kitchen table. The apartment was quiet, except for the drip of the leaky faucet he couldn't afford to fix, and the rumble of the refrigerator that was older than he was. He pulled out his phone and stared at Victoria Grant's message. Then he opened the drawer where he kept Hannah's things, the few items that had survived the accident and the brutal downsizing when he'd had to sell their house. Her wedding ring, a necklace, the watch he'd given her for their second anniversary, and a small jewelry box, wooden, with a carved rose on the lid. He'd looked through this box 100 times. Hannah's earrings, a bracelet from her grandmother, the only family heirloom she had from the foster homes she'd grown up in. Cheap costume jewelry that meant everything because she'd had so little. But tonight, his fingers found an edge in the lining, a small bump he'd never noticed before. His heart hammered against his ribs. He pulled at the fabric and the lining came away, revealing a false bottom. Inside, a business card, cream-colored, expensive stock, Grant Industries embossed in gold, and on the back in masculine handwriting, "Thank you for everything. MG Marcus Grant." Ethan's vision blurred. He flipped the card over, then back again. This had been here the whole time. Hidden, secret. What else had Hannah hidden? He grabbed his laptop, a second-hand thing that took 5 minutes to boot up, and searched Marcus Grant death. The obituary appeared immediately. 3 years ago, 4 months before Hannah's accident, heart failure. Survived by his wife Victoria and son Alexander. In lieu of flowers, donations to the Marcus Grant Foundation for Medical Education. 4 months before Hannah died, the man who'd loved her like a daughter had passed away. Had she known? Had she mourned in secret? Had she wanted to go to the funeral but been too ashamed? Ethan's phone buzzed again. Another text from Victoria. I know this is overwhelming, but there's something you should see. A letter. Hannah left it with Marcus years ago, with instructions to give it to her family if anything ever happened to her. Can we meet tomorrow? A letter, Hannah's handwriting. Her voice from beyond the grave. Ethan's fingers trembled as he typed. Where and when? The response came immediately. Our home, 2 p.m. I'll send the address. And Mr. Cole, bring Lily, she should hear this too. The address that followed was in Beacon Hill. Of course it was. Ethan set the phone down and stared at the business card. Thank you for everything. 7 words that meant Hannah had a whole life he knew nothing about. Relationships, history, secrets. He'd loved her so completely. Had thought she loved him the same way. But how could she, when she'd never really let him know her? Sleep didn't come that night. Ethan lay in the dark, staring at the water-stained ceiling, questions eating him alive. At 6 a.m. he gave up and made coffee. At 7 a.m. he woke Lily for school. At 8 a.m. he called in sick to both his jobs, construction in the morning, grocery store stocking at night. He couldn't work, couldn't function. At 1:30 p.m. he dressed Lily in her best outfit, a dress that was getting too small but was still presentable. He wore the only button-down shirt he owned. They drove to Beacon Hill in silence. The Grant mansion was obscene. 4 stories of red brick and white columns, black shutters, and a garden that probably required a full-time staff. The kind of house Hannah had walked through, laughed in, belonged to. The kind of house she'd left behind for David, and then for Ethan. A butler, an actual butler, answered the door and led them through rooms full of antiques and art. Lily's eyes were huge, taking in the chandelier, the grand staircase, the paintings worth more than most people's houses. They passed a library and Ethan saw it, the portrait from the magazine. Hannah, life-sized and beautiful, positioned above the fireplace like she was family. His chest ached. Victoria met them in a sitting room that had probably been decorated by someone whose name Ethan would recognize. She looked tired, older than she had yesterday. Grief had carved new lines around her eyes. "Thank you for coming." She gestured to a sofa. "Please sit. Can I get you anything? Water? Tea? Lily, would you like some cookies?" Lily looked at Ethan for permission. He nodded and she whispered, "Yes, please." Victoria pressed a button on the wall, an actual servant call button, and a young woman appeared. "Rachel, would you bring some milk and cookies for our young guest?" "Of course, Mrs. Grant." The formality of it all made Ethan want to laugh or scream. This had been Hannah's world. Servants and mansions and people who pushed buttons instead of getting things themselves. "Mr. Cole," Victoria said, once Rachel had left with Lily, who was promised a tour of the nice kitchen, "I want to show you something before we read the letter." She led him back to the library, to the portrait. Up close, it was even more stunning. Hannah in her mid-20s, wearing a simple blue dress, smiling that smile Ethan knew so well. The artist had captured something essential about her, the warmth, the kindness, the light. "Marcus commissioned this the year before he died," Victoria said. "He wanted Hannah to have it, wanted her to see herself the way he saw her, beautiful, worthy, beloved, but she never came to get it." Her voice broke. "She never said goodbye." Ethan's throat was tight. Why, if they loved each other, why did she stay away? "Shame, I think. My husband warned her about David, begged her to leave him. She chose David anyway, and when it ended badly, as Marcus predicted, she couldn't face admitting he'd been right." Victoria touched the frame gently. "Pride and shame, they keep us from the people who love us most. She never told me any of this." "Did she tell you about David, that they'd been together?" "No, I thought," his voice cracked. "I thought we met at his funeral, that it was fate, grief bringing us together." "Perhaps it was," Victoria said softly, "just not the way you imagined." Alexander entered the library carrying a leather folder. His eyes were red-rimmed. He'd been crying. "I didn't know if you'd come," he said to Ethan. "I almost didn't. I'm glad you did." Alexander set the folder on the desk. "This has been waiting for 3 years, I think." He swallowed hard. "I think Hannah knew, somehow she knew her time was running out." "That's impossible." "Read the letter, then tell me it's impossible." They returned to the sitting room. Lily was back, chocolate on her face, eyes bright. Rachel had apparently shown her a garden with a koi pond. Victoria sat beside Ethan, Alexander across from them. The leather folder rested on the coffee table like a bomb. "Hannah gave this to Marcus 5 years before she died," Victoria said. "She made him promise to keep it sealed unless something happened to her. When Marcus passed, Alexander found it in the safe with instructions to find Hannah's family. She wrote this before we were even married," Ethan said. "She updated it twice. The last entry is dated 1 week before her death." The room went cold. Alexander opened the folder and pulled out several pages. Hannah's handwriting. Ethan recognized the loops and slants, the way she dotted her eyes with little circles. "Would you like to read it yourself, or shall I?" Victoria asked gently. Ethan's hands shook too much to hold the pages. "You read it." Victoria took the letter, adjusted her reading glasses, and began. "My dearest Ethan, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've found the Grants. I'm so sorry I never told you about them. I'm sorry for so many things, but I need you to know the truth, even if it's too late. I need you to understand why I kept secrets, and why I loved you more than I've ever loved anyone. This is the story I should have told you on our wedding day. This is the truth I was too ashamed to share." Victoria's voice wavered. She looked up. "Should I continue?" Ethan nodded, unable to speak. "I was born Hannah Morrison, though you know that. What you don't know is that I grew up in 7 different foster homes. I had no one, no family, no one to love me or protect me. When I aged out of the system at 18, I was alone in a way that still haunts me. I worked 3 jobs to put myself through EMT training. I was tired and lonely and desperate to matter to someone." Victoria paused, wiping her eyes. The night I saved Marcus Grant's life, I wasn't trying to be a hero. I just couldn't watch someone die. But Marcus, this wealthy, powerful man, treated me like I'd given him the world. He insisted on helping me finish nursing school. He and Victoria invited me into their home. They became the family I'd never had. For 5 years I was loved. I belonged. I finally understood what it felt like to be someone's daughter. Ethan's vision blurred with tears. And then I met someone who made me question everything. Your brother, Ethan. I met David first. The words hung in the air. Lily looked up from her coloring book, sensing the tension. Victoria paused, glancing at the child. Perhaps Lily should, she began. No, Ethan said. She should know her mother, the real version, not the perfect saint I've been telling her about. Victoria nodded and continued. David was charming and broken and beautiful. I fell for him instantly. Marcus warned me. He did background checks, found David's drug history, his arrests, his debts. He begged me to walk away. We fought. I said terrible things. I chose David over the family who loved me, convinced I could save him, convinced love would be enough. I was so young, so stupid. For 2 years I tried to fix David, tried to love him sober, tried to be enough. But addiction is a monster I couldn't fight. He stole from me, lied to me, hurt me in ways I'm still too ashamed to describe. When I finally left, I was broken, ashamed. I couldn't face the Grants and admit they'd been right. So I disappeared, changed my number, cut all ties. I told myself I'd reach out once I got my life together. But shame has a way of growing. The longer I waited, the harder it became. Victoria's hands trembled on the paper. And then David died, overdose, just like Marcus predicted. I went to the funeral, drowning in guilt. If I'd stayed, could I have saved him? I'd loved him better. Could he still be alive? And then I met you, Ethan, David's older brother. You were grieving so deeply, and I understood that pain. We talked for hours at the wake. You were everything David wasn't: stable, kind, honest. And I fell in love with you that night. Fell hard and fast and desperately. But I was terrified to tell you I'd dated your brother first. Terrified you'd hate me for it. Terrified you'd see me as the woman who failed to save David. Ethan's chest felt crushed. He couldn't breathe, so I kept quiet. And the longer I stayed quiet, the more impossible it became to tell the truth. By the time we got married, the lie had become our foundation. You thought you were my first real love. You thought our meeting was fate. And I let you believe it because I was too cowardly to risk losing you. Oh, Hannah, Victoria whispered. Marcus found me 3 years after our wedding. He'd never stopped looking. When he learned I'd married someone named Ethan Cole, he put the pieces together. He reached out, wanted to reconnect, wanted to give us a wedding present, wanted to meet you and Lily. I panicked, told him to wait, promised I'd tell you everything and then bring you to meet him, but I kept postponing, kept making excuses, kept being afraid. The letter ended there. Victoria flipped to the next page. This entry is dated 2 months later, she said quietly. 3 years ago. Marcus died last week. I didn't go to the funeral. I was too ashamed. Victoria called me crying, asking why I wasn't there. I lied and said I hadn't heard. But I'd seen the obituary, I'd known, and I still didn't come. I let the man who loved me like a father be buried without saying goodbye. I'm a coward, I'm a liar, and I don't deserve Ethan's love or the Grants' forgiveness. Victoria was openly crying now. Alexander had his head in his hands. Final entry, Victoria whispered. 1 week before the accident. I can feel time running out. I don't know how to explain it, but I wake up every morning with the certainty that I'm almost out of chances. I'm going to tell Ethan everything tonight. All of it, David, the Grants, Marcus, the lies. I'm terrified he'll leave me. Terrified Lily will grow up hating me. But I can't keep living this way. Secrets are poison. They've been killing me slowly for years. By the time he reads this, he'll know the truth. And if he's found the Grants, he'll know I tried. That in the end I chose honesty. I chose to be brave. I love you, Ethan Cole. I've loved you since the moment we met. You deserved the truth from the beginning. I'm so sorry it took me so long to find the courage. Victoria set the pages down. The room was silent except for Lily humming softly as she colored. Ethan stared at the letter, at Hannah's handwriting, at the truth she'd never lived long enough to tell him. She died that night, he heard himself say. The night she wrote that final entry. She got hit by the drunk driver on her way home from the grocery store. She never got to tell you, Victoria said softly. No, she never did. The weight of it crushed him. Hannah had found her courage, had decided to risk everything for honesty, and fate had stolen her voice before she could use it. Alexander leaned forward. There's one more thing. In Marcus's will, he left a letter for Hannah. But since she predeceased him, he pulled an envelope from the folder. It's addressed to her family, to you. Ethan took it with numb fingers. The envelope was heavy, expensive. He broke the seal and unfolded the single page inside. Marcus Grant's handwriting was angular, confident. To Hannah's beloved, if you're reading this, my Hannah is gone and you've found my family. I pray you're her husband, that she found love and happiness after the pain she endured. I pray there are children. She would be an extraordinary mother. I want you to know that Hannah saved my life in every way a person can be saved. Not just that night at the gala, but every day after. Her visits, her laughter, her compassion, she taught me what it means to be truly kind. When she left, my heart broke. When she didn't return, even after I tried to find her, I understood. Shame is a powerful prison. I have established a trust fund for any children Hannah might have. Not because she needs my money, but because I need them to know that their mother was loved, that she mattered, that a flawed old billionaire considered it his greatest honor to be thought of as her father. Tell her children that their mother was brave, beautiful, and strong. Tell them that shame and fear are not their inheritance. Tell them that love, real love, forgives everything. And tell Hannah, if she can somehow hear this, that I never stopped loving her, never stopped missing her. Never stopped hoping she'd come home. With love, Marcus Grant. Ethan folded the letter carefully. His hands didn't shake anymore. A strange calm settled over him. She was going to tell me, he said. That night she was finally going to be honest. Yes, Victoria said, and she never got the chance. No, he looked at Lily, still coloring, still innocent, still carrying Hannah's smile and Marcus's trust fund and a legacy of secrets that ended with her. I need to go, Ethan said. I need to think. Of course, Alexander stood. But Ethan, Mr. Cole, please, don't let shame be your inheritance either. Hannah kept secrets because she was afraid. Don't repeat her mistake. Ethan met his eyes. What does that mean? It means you're angry, you're hurt, you feel betrayed. But you love Lily more than your pride, just like Hannah loved you more than her fear. Don't let your daughter suffer because of choices Hannah made before Lily was even born. The truth of it hit hard. The trust fund, Victoria said quietly. It's real, it's waiting, and it's Lily's, not as charity, as family legacy. Marcus considered Hannah his daughter. That makes Lily his granddaughter. I don't know if I can accept that. Then don't decide today. Take time, process, grieve, but please, Victoria's voice broke. Please don't disappear like Hannah did. We've lost too much already. I can't lose her daughter too. Ethan looked at this elegant woman with tears streaming down her face, at the billionaire's son with grief in his eyes, at the portrait of his wife hanging above a fireplace in a mansion she'd walked away from. Hannah had been loved by these people, really, truly loved, and she'd been too ashamed to accept it. I'll call, he said. I promise, I just need time. Thank you. The butler appeared to show them out. Lily chattered about the koi pond the whole way to the car. Ethan drove home on autopilot, mind spinning. That evening, after Lily was asleep, Ethan sat at the kitchen table with Marcus's letter and Hannah's confession, and the business card with the handwritten thank you. His phone was in his hand before he knew what he was doing, not calling Victoria or Alexander, calling the police non-emergency line. I need to report something about a 3-year-old car accident, he said when someone answered. I think there might be more to it than we originally thought, because Hannah's final words echoed in his mind. I can feel time running out. What if the drunk driver wasn't random? What if someone wanted Hannah silenced before she could tell her secrets? The operator took his information and promised someone would call him back. Ethan hung up and stared at his phone. Then he opened his texts and found Victoria Grant's number. He typed, "Do you know anyone who would have wanted to hurt Hannah? Anyone from her past who might have had reason to keep her quiet?" The response came within seconds. "Come back tomorrow. There's someone you need to meet. Someone who knew David, and who might know more about the night Hannah died." Ethan's blood ran cold. He typed back, "Who?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, "His name is Raymond Price. He was David's dealer, and he's been asking questions about Hannah for the past 3 years. Alexander has been watching him. Ethan stared at the message. Raymond Price, a drug dealer, asking about Hannah. His wife had been running from more than shame. She'd been running from danger. His phone buzzed again. Victoria, don't do anything tonight. Promise me. Come tomorrow at noon. Alexander has arranged a meeting. We'll get answers together. Ethan's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Every instinct screamed at him to act, to find this Raymond Price, to demand answers. But Lily was asleep in the next room, and he was all she had left. He typed, "I'll be there." Then he walked to Lily's room and sat beside her mattress on the floor, watched her chest rise and fall, listened to her soft breathing, this perfect little girl who looked like Hannah and deserved so much better than secrets and lies and danger. "I'm going to find out what happened to your mom," he whispered. "I promise." Lily stirred in her sleep, and for just a moment, Ethan saw Hannah's face, young and scared and brave all at once. She'd been trying to protect them. All those secrets, all that shame, she'd been carrying it alone so they wouldn't have to. And someone had killed her for it. Ethan's jaw clenched, his hands fisted in his lap. Tomorrow he'd get answers. Tomorrow he'd meet the man who knew David's secrets. Tomorrow everything would change. He stood and walked back to the kitchen, pulled out his laptop, searched Raymond Price, Boston drug dealer. Nothing. The man was a ghost. But Victoria said Alexander had been watching him, which meant the Grants knew how to find him. Ethan opened a new browser tab, searched Hannah Cole car accident Boston 3 years ago. The article appeared brief, generic. Local nurse killed in collision with drunk driver. Driver fled the scene. Investigation ongoing. Fled the scene. Ethan's stomach turned. He'd read this article 100 times in the days after Hannah's death, had memorized every word while drowning in grief, but he'd never questioned it. Never wondered if it was more than random tragedy. Now, with Marcus's letter and Hannah's confession and Raymond Price's name burning in his mind, he saw it differently. Fled the scene. Investigation ongoing for 3 years because they'd never found the driver. Ethan's phone was in his hand. He pulled up Victoria's messages and typed, "The driver who killed Hannah, did they ever catch him?" Her response came immediately, "No." The case went cold within weeks. Ethan, convenient. "Victoria, Alexander has a theory. We'll discuss it tomorrow. Please, Ethan, get some sleep. This isn't over yet." But sleep was impossible. Ethan spent the night searching. David Cole's history, arrests, rehabilitation attempts, associates. And there, buried in a news article from 13 years ago, local man arrested in drug raid. Raymond Price, 34, facing trafficking charges. Associates include David Cole, 26, and Marcus Thompson, 29. Raymond Price. Connected to David. Connected to the life Hannah had tried to escape. The life that might have followed her for years. Waiting, watching, and finally striking the night she decided to tell the truth. Ethan's hands shook as he closed the laptop. Tomorrow, answers tomorrow. He made coffee at 5 a.m., watched the sunrise through their apartment's dirty window, made Lily breakfast at 7 a.m. and tried to act normal as she chattered about her friend's birthday party next week. "Can we afford a present?" Lily asked carefully. She'd learned to phrase it that way. Can we afford? 8 years old and already carrying the weight of poverty. "Yeah, baby, we'll get something nice." With what money, he didn't know, but he'd figure it out. He always did. At 11 a.m. he dropped Lily at their neighbor's apartment, Mrs. Chen, who watched her sometimes when Ethan had to work. Then he drove to Beacon Hill. The mansion looked different in daylight, less intimidating somehow, or maybe Ethan was just too angry to be intimidated anymore. Alexander met him at the door, no butler this time. "Thank you for coming," Alexander said. His voice was tight, professional. "Raymond Price is in my father's study. He's agreed to talk." Why would he agree to that? Because he's dying, cancer stage 4, and apparently he wants to clear his conscience before he meets his maker. Ethan's blood roared in his ears. Did he kill her? Let's find out. They walked through the mansion, past the library, past Hannah's portrait, to a wood-paneled study. A man sat in one of the leather chairs. Thin, gaunt, yellowish skin, 60 maybe, but looking 80, Raymond Price. He looked up when they entered, and Ethan saw genuine fear in his eyes. You're the husband, Raymond said, voice raspy, weak. Ethan Cole, I'm sorry. Raymond's hands trembled in his lap. God, I'm so sorry. Did you kill my wife? Silence stretched between them like a knife. Then Raymond nodded. The room spun. Ethan's fist clenched. Alexander's hand landed on his shoulder, firm, restraining. Tell him, Alexander said coldly, everything. Raymond took a shaking breath. David Cole owed me money when he died. 20,000. I knew it wasn't really his debt. I'd inflated it, charged interest he never agreed to. But I was angry he died before paying me back, and I wanted someone to hurt for it. So I found Hannah. 3 years after David's death, I showed up at the diner where she worked. Told her David's debt was her responsibility now. Ethan's vision went red. She told me to go to hell, said David was dead and she owed me nothing. She was right, but I was desperate and mean and determined to get something out of someone. Raymond coughed, a wet, painful sound. I followed her for weeks, learned her routine, where she worked, where she lived, where her kid went to school. I sent threatening notes, called from blocked numbers, made her afraid. You terrorized her, Ethan whispered. Yes, and the night she died, I followed her car. I'd been drinking, wasn't thinking straight, just wanted to scare her into paying. So I pulled up behind her, flashed my brights, rode her bumper. She sped up, I stayed close. Then she swerved to avoid something, a cat maybe or debris, and I nudged her bumper, just a tap. I swear it was just a tap. You ran her off the road, Alexander said. I didn't mean. She overcorrected, spun out, hit the guardrail and flipped. I panicked, drove away. To there, Raymond's face crumpled. I killed her over fake debt and pride, and I've been living with it for 3 years, drinking myself stupid, wishing I could undo it. Ethan couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't see past the rage consuming him. The police ruled it a drunk driver who fled, he managed. Because I made it look that way, ditched the car, reported it stolen, covered my tracks. And you're confessing now? Why? Because you're dying and you want forgiveness? Raymond met his eyes. No. I don't deserve forgiveness. I'm confessing because Alexander Grant tracked me down 2 months ago, told me he knew what I'd done, gave me a choice, turn myself in and tell the truth, or he'd make sure my last months were spent in legal hell. Ethan looked at Alexander. The billionaire's face was granite. My father loved Hannah, Alexander said quietly. I won't let her death go unpunished. The police are coming, Raymond said. Alexander called them before you arrived. I'm going to confess everything officially. There's evidence, my car hidden in a storage unit, damage to the bumper, DNA probably. I'll plead guilty, die in prison if I last that long. Good, Ethan said. The word came out like gravel. I'm sorry, Raymond said again. I know it means nothing. I know sorry doesn't bring her back, but she was kind to me even when I was threatening her, even when she should have hated me. The last time I saw her alive, she told me she'd pray for me. Said David would want me to get help. He broke down sobbing. She tried to save me just like she tried to save David, and I killed her for it. Ethan turned and walked out. He couldn't stay in that room another second, couldn't look at the man who'd stolen Hannah, stolen Lily's mother, stolen everything. He made it to the front steps before his legs gave out. Victoria found him there, sitting on cold marble, head in his hands. The police just arrived, she said softly. He's confessing. It'll be official. Justice, Ethan said bitterly. 3 years too late. Better than never. He looked up at her, this elegant woman with grief carved into her features. Did you know, when you messaged me last night, did you know it was murder? Alexander suspected. He's been investigating for months. When Raymond got his diagnosis, Alexander approached him with evidence and gave him the choice to do the right thing. You didn't tell me. We needed proof. We needed his confession. If we'd told you and he'd denied it, he'd have disappeared and we'd have lost our chance at justice. Ethan wanted to be angry, but he was too tired. Hannah was going to tell me the truth the night she died, he said. She'd finally found the courage, and he took that from her. I know. She died thinking I didn't know she'd loved David first, died thinking she'd kept her secrets. But she'd written them down. She made sure you'd eventually know, even if she couldn't tell you herself. The front door opened. Police officers led Raymond Price out in handcuffs. He looked at Ethan as they passed. I'm sorry, Raymond said one more time. Ethan said nothing, just watched as they put the man who killed his wife into a police car and drove away. It should have felt like victory, it just felt like more loss. Alexander appeared beside Victoria. "It's over," he said quietly. "No," Ethan said. "It's not. There's still Lily, the trust fund, Hannah's legacy." "What are you saying?" Ethan stood. Looked at these two people who'd loved his wife before he even knew her, who'd tried to save her, who'd never stopped searching for her. "I'm saying I can't do this alone. I'm saying Lily deserves to know her mother's full story. I'm saying," his voice broke, "I'm saying I need help." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "You have it, whatever you need. The trust fund, I want to accept it for Lily. Done, but not as charity, as family." Alexander's throat worked as he swallowed. "We'd be honored. I want her to know about Marcus, about how Hannah saved him, about how he loved her." Ethan looked back at the mansion. "I want her to see that portrait, to understand that her mother was brave and flawed and human. We'll tell her everything," Victoria promised. Ethan nodded, then a thought struck him. "There's one more letter. Hannah mentioned it in her confession, a letter for Lily, for her 18th birthday. Victoria and Alexander exchanged glances. "We have it," Victoria said carefully. Hannah left it with Marcus. He put it in the safe with instructions that Victoria's sentence hung unfinished in the air. She and Alexander exchanged another one of those loaded glances, and Ethan's stomach dropped. "Instructions that what?" he pressed. Victoria's hand trembled as she smoothed her skirt. "Instructions that it only be given to Lily if you approved. Marcus wanted to respect your role as her father. He wrote that the letter contains things about Hannah's past that might be difficult for a child to understand, and the decision should be yours." "I want to see it," Ethan said immediately. "Are you certain? Once you read it, you can't unknow what's inside, and you'll have to decide whether Lily should know these things now or wait until she's 18 as Hannah intended." Ethan thought of his daughter, 8 years old, still innocent, still believing her mother was a simple saint who died in a tragic accident. The truth was so much messier. Hannah had loved a drug addict, had been terrorized by a dealer, had kept secrets from everyone she loved, had died trying to finally be honest. "I need to read it," Ethan said. "I need to know everything." Alexander nodded and disappeared into the mansion. Victoria sat beside Ethan on the steps, her expensive perfume mixing with the scent of the garden roses. "You're braver than you think," she said quietly, "coming here, facing all of this. Hannah chose well when she chose you. Did she choose me, or did I just happen to be there when she needed someone safe after David destroyed her?" Victoria was silent for a long moment. "Does it matter? She loved you, she married you, she gave you Lily. The beginning of a love story doesn't define its truth." Before Ethan could respond, Alexander returned carrying a cream-colored envelope, sealed with red wax. Hannah's handwriting across the front, "To Lily Rose Cole. To be opened on her 18th birthday. With love, Mom, Lily Rose." Hannah had chosen both names. Rose after the grandmother she'd never known, she'd said, but maybe also after the roses in the Grants' garden. Maybe every choice Hannah made had layers Ethan had never seen. "Take it home," Victoria urged. "Read it in private. Take your time deciding what to do." Ethan held the envelope like it might shatter. Paper shouldn't feel this heavy. What if I read it and decide Lily should never know? What if the truth would hurt her more than the lies? "Then we'll respect that," Alexander said. "This is your choice, your family. But your family too now, aren't you?" The words surprised Ethan as much as they seemed to surprise the Grants. "Marcus considered Hannah his daughter. You loved her. You have her portrait in your home. You've been searching for her for years." He looked between them. "Lily is your granddaughter, your niece in a way. You have a right to be part of her life." Victoria's composure finally cracked. She covered her mouth with one hand, tears streaming down her face. Alexander's eyes were bright with moisture. "We would be honored," Alexander said, his voice rough, "if you'd let us." "On one condition," Ethan said. "You tell me everything, not just what's in the letters, everything you know about Hannah, the good, the bad, the complicated. I need to know who my wife really was." "Deal," Alexander said immediately. They went back inside to the library with Hannah's portrait watching over them. Victoria ordered tea, real tea in china cups that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly rent, and they began to talk. Victoria described the first time Hannah had visited Marcus in the hospital after saving his life. How she'd brought flowers from a street vendor because she couldn't afford a real bouquet. How Marcus had laughed and said they were the most beautiful flowers he'd ever received because they came from a genuine heart. Alexander talked about being 15 when Hannah started visiting regularly, how she'd treated him like a real person, not like a rich kid to be handled with kid gloves, how she'd helped him with his homework, taught him to make grilled cheese sandwiches when the cook was off duty, listened to his teenage problems without judgment. She was the first person who ever really saw me, Alexander said. Not my father's son, not the heir to a fortune, just Alexander. A confused, lonely teenager who needed someone to talk to. The stories painted a picture of Hannah that was both familiar and foreign. The kindness was the same, the warmth, the ability to make people feel valued. But this Hannah moved through a world of wealth and privilege like she belonged there. This Hannah had eaten dinner at tables set with crystal and silver, had attended charity galas in borrowed dresses, had been loved by people who could have given her anything. And she'd walked away from all of it for David. Tell me about when she left, Ethan said. Victoria's expression tightened with old pain. She brought him to dinner, David. Marcus and I tried to be welcoming, but it was immediately clear that young man was troubled. He was high at our table, couldn't focus on conversation, made inappropriate jokes. Marcus pulled Hannah aside afterward and begged her to be careful. She didn't listen, Ethan guessed. She was defensive. Said we didn't understand real love, that David just needed someone to believe in him. Marcus told her she couldn't save someone who didn't want to be saved. Victoria's fingers twisted her napkin. Hannah said if we couldn't accept David, she couldn't come back. We thought she'd cool down, realize we were right, come back in a few weeks. But she didn't. No, for 2 years, we heard nothing. Marcus hired investigators to make sure she was safe. We knew about the apartment she shared with David, the hospital job she took, the times David stole from her, the night the police were called for a domestic disturbance. Victoria's voice cracked. We wanted to help, but she'd made it clear she didn't want us in her life. Then David died, Alexander continued, and we thought finally she'd come back. We waited for her to call, to show up, to need us, but again, nothing. Because she met me, Ethan said slowly, at David's funeral. And she was too ashamed to tell me about you or about having dated David first. Shame is a poison, Victoria said. It killed Marcus and Hannah's relationship. It kept her from accepting help when she needed it most. It made her carry secrets that grew heavier every year. Ethan thought about Hannah in their tiny apartment, struggling to pay bills, working double shifts, never asking for help even when they were drowning. He'd thought it was pride, independence. Now he understood it was shame. The weight of secrets she couldn't share without unraveling her entire life. When did Marcus find her again? Ethan asked. 3 years after David's death, 5 years after she'd last spoken to us. Alexander pulled out his phone and showed Ethan a photo. Marcus Grant, older, gray-haired, distinguished. And beside him in the photo, Hannah, older than in the portrait, but still radiant. They were at some kind of outdoor event, both laughing. This was taken at a street fair. Marcus saw her there with you and Lily. He approached her. Ethan's chest constricted. He didn't remember this. Had no memory of Hannah talking to a strange man at a street fair. When had this been? She told Marcus she'd call him, Victoria said. Promised she'd explain everything. Asked for time to tell you about her past first. Marcus agreed to wait. But months passed. Then a year. His health was declining. The heart Hannah saved was finally giving out. He called her one last time and begged her to visit before it was too late. She said she would. She said she just needed to find the right words to tell you first. But she never found them, Ethan whispered. Marcus died still hoping she'd come to his funeral, Victoria said. Tears rolled down her cheeks unchecked now. I called her when he passed. She cried on the phone, said she loved him, said she was sorry, but she didn't come. And 4 months later she was gone too. The timeline was devastating. Marcus had died 4 months before Hannah's accident. 4 months of Hannah carrying that guilt, that grief, that shame. No wonder her final letter entry said she felt time running out. She'd lost her father figure and knew she was drowning in secrets. I have to pause here and ask you something. What do you think happened in those final 4 months? Why did Hannah finally decide to tell Ethan everything? Drop your prediction in the comments, then let's see if you're right. Because what comes next changes everything. Ethan set down his teacup with shaking hands. The letter she left with Marcus, the one where she confessed about David. When did she write that? She started it before she met you, Victoria said. Updated it after you married. Updated it again after Lily was born. The final entry, the one about feeling time running out, that was written the day before she died. Can I see all of it, not just the parts you read me yesterday? Alexander and Victoria exchanged glances again, that look that meant they were keeping something back. What aren't you telling me? Ethan's voice hardened. There are parts of the letter that are difficult, Victoria said carefully. Details about her relationship with David that are painful, specific incidents, things she did that she regretted. I want to know. Ethan, she was my wife. I deserve the truth, all of it. Alexander sighed and pulled the full letter from a drawer in Marcus's desk. He handed it over, pages and pages in Hannah's handwriting. We'll give you privacy, Victoria said, standing. No, stay, I might have questions. They sat back down and Ethan began to read. The early entries were similar to what he'd heard. Hannah's childhood in foster care, her loneliness, saving Marcus, being welcomed into their family. But then he reached the section about David and his hands began to shake. I met David at the hospital where I worked. He'd been brought in after a car accident, minor injuries, but they tested him and found drugs in his system. I was his nurse. He was charming even in a hospital gown, even knowing he was high. He flirted, I laughed. When he was discharged, he asked for my number. I said no. He showed up at the hospital the next day with flowers. I said no again. He came back every day for a week. Finally, I said yes. Ethan could picture it. David's charisma, his determination, his ability to make people feel like they were the only person in the world. Ethan had loved his little brother, but he'd also known David's manipulative streak. The first few months were perfect. David was sober, charming, attentive. He met my friends, took me on dates, made me feel special. Then I introduced him to the Grants. Marcus saw through him immediately, ran a background check, found the arrests, the rehab stints, the pattern of addiction. He sat me down and showed me everything. I was furious. I thought Marcus was being controlling, trying to run my life. I screamed at him that I was an adult and could make my own choices. I said terrible things, that he wasn't my real father and had no right to judge my boyfriend, that rich people like him couldn't understand real love. Victoria made a small sound of pain. I regret those words more than anything I've ever said. Marcus was trying to protect me, and I threw his love back in his face. I chose David. I moved in with him. I stopped answering the Grants' calls. I cut them out of my life completely. The letter continued, detailing the decline of Hannah's relationship with David, the lies, the money that went missing, the nights he didn't come home, the excuses, the promises to get clean that lasted days or weeks before he used again. I thought I could save him. I thought love would be enough. I worked extra shifts to pay for rehab. I went to meetings with him. I called his sponsor when he disappeared. I chose him over my job, over my friends, over the people who genuinely loved me, and it was never enough, because you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. Then came the part that made Ethan's stomach turn. One night, David came home high and angry. I'd hidden his wallet to keep him from buying more drugs. He threw things, broke dishes. Punched a hole in the wall 6 inches from my head. I locked myself in the bathroom and called the police. They came, took statements, but David was charming even then. Convinced them it was just a couple's argument, that I was overreacting. The female officer pulled me aside and gave me the number for a women's shelter. I told her I didn't need it, that David would never actually hurt me, that I could handle it. Ethan's vision blurred. Hannah had been in an abusive relationship. Had been terrified, had called the police, and he'd never known. The next morning, David apologized, cried, begged me to forgive him, said he'd get help, said he loved me. I believed him because I wanted to, because admitting I'd made a terrible mistake meant admitting Marcus was right, meant facing the shame of crawling back to the people I'd rejected. So I stayed. For 6 more months I stayed. Until the night David stole my grandmother's bracelet, the only thing I had from my past, and pawned it for drug money. That was my breaking point, Not the violence, not the lies, but losing the one piece of my history. I packed a bag while he was passed out and left, moved in with a friend, changed my number, started over. Ethan looked up from the letter. You knew all this? Victoria nodded. We knew some. Our investigators kept track to make sure she was safe. When she finally left David, Marcus wanted to reach out. I convinced him to give her space, to let her come to us when she was ready, but she never did. Not until Marcus found her at that street fair years later. By then, she'd built a new life, with you. Ethan returned to the letter. The next section was about David's death. When I got the call that David had overdosed, I felt relief. That's the terrible truth. My first emotion wasn't grief. It was relief that he couldn't hurt me anymore. Then came the guilt, crushing, overwhelming guilt. What if I'd stayed? What if I'd tried harder? What if I'd loved him better? Could I have saved him? I went to the funeral still drowning in that guilt. And then I met you, David's brother. You looked so much like him, but with kindness in your eyes where David had emptiness. You were grieving so purely, so deeply. You loved your brother despite his flaws. And I envied that, envied your ability to love without shame. We talked for hours at the wake. You told me stories about David as a child, about the brother he'd been before drugs stole him. I didn't tell you I'd known him too, didn't tell you I'd loved him and been destroyed by him. I let you think I was just a kind stranger who understood loss. And when you asked for my number, I gave it to you. Ethan's hands shook so badly, he almost dropped the pages. Our first date was 3 weeks after David's funeral. Too soon, I knew, but I'd fallen for you so fast. You were everything David wasn't. Stable, honest, gentle, working construction to support yourself, living in a modest apartment, no pretense, no manipulation, just you, with your kind eyes and your grief and your determination to be better than your past. I should have told you that night, should have confessed that I'd dated your brother, that I'd failed to save him. That the guilt of his death was crushing me, but I was terrified you'd hate me, terrified you'd think I'd killed David by leaving him, so I stayed quiet. And every day I stayed quiet made the truth harder to tell. We dated for 6 months. You proposed on a beach at sunset with a ring you'd saved for months to buy. I cried and said yes, and I still didn't tell you, because I loved you so much, because I was so afraid of losing you. On our wedding day, I almost confessed. Stood in my dress in the bridal suite with the words on my tongue. But I looked at you standing at the altar, smiling at me like I was the best thing that had ever happened to you, and I couldn't. I told myself the past didn't matter, that David was gone and our love was real, and the truth would only hurt us. So I walked down the aisle carrying my secrets like stones. Ethan's throat was so tight he could barely breathe. Their wedding day, her in that simple white dress they'd bought at a discount store. Him in a borrowed suit, 20 guests in a community center. It had been perfect, the happiest day of his life, and she'd been carrying the weight of lies the entire time. The letter continued through their marriage. Hannah's joy when they found out about Lily, her fear that the baby would somehow be damaged by her past with David, her relief when Lily was born healthy and perfect. Becoming a mother changed everything. Suddenly, I had this perfect little being depending on me. And I realized I was building her life on a foundation of lies. What if she found out someday? What if someone told her I'd dated her uncle? What if the truth came out and destroyed our family? Marcus called when Lily was 6 months old. He'd found us somehow. He wanted to meet his granddaughter, wanted to set up a trust fund for her, wanted to be part of our lives again. I panicked, told him I needed time to tell you about him first, promised I would. But every time I tried, the words wouldn't come. How could I explain that I'd had a secret family, that I'd been loved by billionaires and walked away, that I'd kept all of this from you for years? So I stalled, told Marcus soon, told him next month, told him after the holidays. And he waited because he loved me, because he understood shame. Ethan reached the final entries, the ones written after Marcus's death. Marcus died last week, and I didn't go to the funeral. Victoria called me sobbing, begging me to come, saying Marcus had asked for me in his final days. And I stayed home, made excuses to you about being sick, let the man who saved me be buried without saying goodbye. I am a coward, I am a liar, I have built my entire life on shame and fear, and it's killing me. I can't sleep, can't eat, Can't look at you without guilt eating me alive. I see Marcus in my dreams. He's disappointed, not angry, just sad, and I wake up crying. I have to tell you everything about David, about the Grants, about the woman I was before I became Hannah Cole. You deserve the truth. Lily deserves a mother who doesn't carry secrets. I deserve to stop living in fear. Then the final entry, the one written the day before she died. Today is the day. I'm going to tell Ethan tonight. After Lily goes to bed, I'm going to sit him down and confess everything. I've practiced the words 100 times. Ethan, I need to tell you about my past. I dated your brother before we met. I was loved by a family I've kept secret from you. I've been lying for years and I can't do it anymore. I'm terrified. He might leave me, might hate me, might take Lily and go. But I can't live like this anymore. Secrets are poison and I'm drowning in them. Whatever happens tonight, at least I'll finally be free. If you're reading this, Ethan, it means something happened to me before I could tell you in person. It means I ran out of time. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for the lies, sorry for the secrets, sorry for building our marriage on a foundation of fear. You deserved better. You deserved honesty from the beginning. Please know that I loved you every day, every moment. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. Lily was our miracle, and if I could go back and do it all differently, the only thing I'd change is I'd tell you the truth from the start. I wouldn't waste years being afraid. Please forgive me. Please tell Lily I loved her, and please, if you find the Grants, let them be part of her life. They're good people. They loved me even when I didn't deserve it. Marcus wanted to take care of Lily. Let him, even from beyond the grave. She deserves that security. I love you. I'm sorry. And if there's an afterlife, I'll spend it trying to be worthy of the love you gave me. The letter ended there. Ethan set it down carefully and realized his face was wet with tears. The room was silent except for the ticking of an antique clock on the mantel. Victoria and Alexander sat frozen, giving him space to process. She was going to tell me everything that night, Ethan finally said, and instead she drove to the grocery store and Raymond Price ran her off the road. Yes, Victoria whispered. She died carrying those secrets, died thinking I didn't know, died believing she'd failed. But she left the letters, Alexander said gently. She made sure the truth would come out eventually. That took courage. It took years to find that courage. Ethan's voice was bitter. Years of lies. Our entire marriage was built on them. Your marriage was built on love, Victoria said firmly. Hannah made mistakes. She carried shame that ate her alive. But she loved you, Ethan. That was real. That was true. How can I know that? How can I know anything about her was real? Because of Lily. Alexander leaned forward. Hannah could have walked away from her pregnancy, could have kept the Grants a secret forever, could have taken the easy path a dozen different times, but she didn't. She chose you. She chose to be a mother. She chose to try to be honest, even when it terrified her. That's not a woman who was faking her life. That's a woman who was fighting to deserve the love she'd been given. Ethan wanted to argue, wanted to hold on to his anger, but he thought about Hannah with Lily, the way she'd sung lullabies. The way she'd kissed scraped knees, the way she'd worked double shifts so they could afford birthday presents, the way she'd smiled at him across the dinner table even when she was exhausted. That hadn't been fake. That had been real. There's more, Victoria said quietly. The letter to Lily, I think you should read it now, before you decide anything else. Ethan picked up the sealed envelope addressed to his daughter. His hands trembled as he broke the wax seal. The letter inside was shorter. Written in Hannah's handwriting, but simplified. Written for a child, even one who wouldn't read it until she was 18. My darling Lily, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm so sorry I won't be there to see you grow up, to help you with your first heartbreak, to teach you to drive, to meet the person you fall in love with, to hold your babies. I'm sorry for all the moments I'll miss. But I need to tell you some things, important things, about who I was and who I hope you'll be. I made a lot of mistakes, Lily. I loved people who hurt me. I kept secrets from people who deserved the truth. I let shame control my choices. I was afraid of judgment, of loss, of being unworthy. And that fear made me hide parts of myself from the people I loved most. Don't be like me, baby girl. Be braver, be more honest. When you make mistakes, and you will, everyone does, face them. Apologize, make amends. Don't let shame become a cage. I loved your father more than I can put into words. He was kind when I needed kindness. He was patient when I was difficult. He was the best man I ever knew. But I lied to him, Lily. I kept secrets about my past because I was afraid he wouldn't love me if he knew the truth. That was wrong. That was cowardly. And I regret it more than anything. If you learn nothing else from my mistakes, learn this. The people who truly love you will love you through your mess. They'll love you through your worst choices and your deepest shame. But you have to let them. You have to trust them with the truth. There's a family you don't know about, the Grants, Marcus and Victoria and Alexander. They loved me like I was their daughter. They tried to help me when I was in a bad relationship. I pushed them away because I was stubborn and afraid. But they never stopped loving me. Even when I disappeared for years, they kept looking for me. They wanted to take care of you. By the time you read this, I hope you know them. I hope your father has let them into your life. They're good people, Lily. Marcus saved me in so many ways, and I saved him once too. We were family even when I was too ashamed to accept it. I want you to know them, to love them, to let them love you. You deserve all the family you can get. Don't let pride or fear keep you from people who care. Be kind, Lily. Be brave. Be honest. Be more than I was. Love without shame. Trust without holding back. And forgive others and yourself. Forgiveness is the only thing that makes life bearable. I love you more than stars in the sky, more than waves in the ocean, more than words can express. You are my greatest achievement, my proudest moment, the best thing I ever did. Take care of your father. He's going to be lost without me. Be his strength when he can't be strong. Remind him to smile. Make him laugh. Let him cry when he needs to. He's the best man I know, and he needs you as much as you need him. And live, baby girl, live fully, live honestly, live without the fear that controlled me. You're going to do amazing things. I wish I could be there to see them. All my love, forever and always, Mom. Ethan couldn't see the page anymore through his tears. He folded the letter carefully and held it against his chest. She knew, he whispered. She knew she was running out of time. I think she felt it, Victoria said. Some people do. They sense when the end is near. Or maybe she was just finally ready to be free, Alexander added. Ready to stop running from her past, and fate had other plans. They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Ethan stood and walked to Hannah's portrait, looked into her painted eyes. She looked so happy in this image, so full of light. This was Hannah before David, before shame, before secrets. I want Lily to have this, he said. The letter, when she's old enough to understand. Are you sure? Victoria asked. Hannah wrote it for her. Lily deserves her mother's truth. He turned to face them. And I want her to know you, really know you, not as strangers who knew Mom, as family. Victoria stood and crossed to him. She took his hands in hers. Thank you for giving us this chance. Hannah wanted it. It's what she was trying to do when she died. I won't let her secrets win. What about the trust fund? Alexander asked. Do you still want it? Ethan thought about his daughter. Her worn clothes and broken toys. Her brave smile when she said she understood why they couldn't afford things. Her future, college, opportunities, security. Yes, but with conditions. Name them. I want to be involved, want to understand how the money is managed, want to contribute what I can even if it's small. This is partnership, not charity. Done, and I want to work. You mentioned a job, community outreach coordinator. Is that still available? Alexander smiled. It's yours if you want it. I want it. I want to help people like Hannah was, people stuck in situations they don't know how to escape. I want to do something that matters. Hannah would be proud, Victoria said. Would she? Ethan wasn't sure, but he knew he had to try. Over the next few months, Ethan's life transformed in ways he couldn't have imagined. The trust fund paid off his debts and moved them into a decent apartment. Nothing extravagant, he'd insisted on that, but clean, safe, with separate bedrooms and a kitchen where the faucets didn't leak. He started work at the Grant Foundation. Real work, meaningful work, helping families navigate addiction services and emergency housing, using his own experience with poverty to connect with people who needed help. Lily started visiting the Grant's house on weekends. Victoria taught her to garden. Alexander took her to museums. They told her stories about her mother, happy stories of Hannah, young and full of hope. They didn't tell her about David or the secrets. Not yet. She was still too young. But they built a relationship. Lily called Victoria Grandma V and Alexander Uncle Alex. She drew pictures of the koi pond and hung them on their refrigerator. She was loved, and she knew it. Raymond Price pled guilty to vehicular manslaughter and extortion. The evidence was overwhelming: the car with damage to the bumper, his confession, witness statements from people who'd seen him following Hannah. He was sentenced to 15 years. Given his cancer, he'd likely die in prison. Ethan attended the sentencing, sat in the courtroom, and watched the man who'd killed his wife be led away in chains. It should have felt like victory. It felt like closing a chapter in a book he'd never wanted to read. 6 months after that first visit to the Grant mansion, Ethan finally felt like he could breathe again. The grief was still there, it would always be there, but it had dulled from sharp agony to constant ache. He could think about Hannah without falling apart, could look at her photos without his chest collapsing. Lily was thriving, happy in her new school, making friends, joining the art club. She still missed her mother, would always miss her mother, but she was building a life beyond that loss. One evening, as Ethan tucked her into bed, Lily asked the question he'd been dreading. "Daddy, why did Mommy keep secrets?" His heart stopped. "What do you mean, baby?" "Grandma V told me Mommy used to visit their house a long time ago, before I was born, before she met you, but Mommy never told you about them. That's a secret, right?" Ethan sat on the edge of her bed. Lily was 8 now, almost 9, old enough to start understanding complexity, not old enough for the full truth. "Yeah, honey, that was a secret." "Why?" "Because Mommy was scared. She thought if she told the truth, people might not love her anymore." Lily frowned. "That's silly. The truth doesn't change love, doesn't it?" "No, love is love, even when people make mistakes." She said it with such certainty, such childish wisdom. "You're right," Ethan said quietly. "Love is love. I wish Mommy had known that." "I think she did, at the end." Lily snuggled into her pillow. "Grandma V said Mommy was trying to tell you everything when she died. That means she figured it out, right? That love is stronger than secrets." "Yeah, baby, I think she did." "Good." Lily yawned. "I'm glad. I don't want Mommy to be sad in heaven." "I don't think she is. I think she's at peace now. Because we know the truth. Because we love her anyway, even knowing the truth." Lily smiled and closed her eyes. Within minutes, she was asleep. Ethan sat there for a long time, watching her breathe. This perfect little girl who understood things he was still learning. Love is love, even through mistakes. His phone buzzed. Text from Alexander: "Can you stop by tomorrow? There's something we need to discuss." Ethan's stomach tightened. Those words never meant anything good. The next day he drove to the Grant mansion during his lunch break. Alexander met him at the door, his expression grim. "What's wrong?" Ethan asked immediately. "Raymond Price died this morning. The cancer." Ethan waited to feel something, relief, grief, but there was only numbness. "Okay." Before he died, he asked to see me, had something he needed to say. About Hannah, about the night she died. Alexander led him to the library. He said there was more to the story, something he didn't tell us before. Ethan's blood went cold. "What do you mean more?" He said he wasn't working alone, that someone paid him to follow Hannah, to scare her, that the accident was meant to be a warning, not. Alexander's voice broke. "Not murder." The room spun. "Someone hired him." That's what he claimed, but he wouldn't say who. Said he'd already confessed to enough, that he wasn't going to drag anyone else down with him. That's convenient. A deathbed confession with no proof. There might be proof. Alexander pulled out his phone and showed Ethan a photo, a bank statement, Raymond Price's account, a deposit of $20,000 2 days before Hannah's death. "Our attorneys found this while preparing his estate paperwork. $20,000 from an LLC we're still trying to trace. Someone paid him $20,000 to terrorize my wife. It appears so. Who would want to hurt Hannah? That's what we're trying to find out. The LLC is buried under layers of shell companies. It's going to take time to unravel." Ethan sank into a chair. "This doesn't end. Even dead, Hannah's past keeps reaching out to destroy us." "Not destroy." "Veal." Alexander sat across from him. "Whatever this is, whoever did this, we're going to find them. We're going to get justice." "Justice?" Ethan laughed bitterly. "Raymond got justice and he's dead. Hannah got nothing. Lily has no mother. What kind of justice is that?" "The only kind we have." They sat in silence. Then Ethan's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Hello, is this Ethan Cole?" A woman's voice, older, shaking. "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Patricia Price. Raymond was my brother." Ethan's grip tightened on the phone. "I don't want to talk to you. Please don't hang up. I know what Raymond did. I know he killed your wife. But there's something you need to know. Something he made me promise to tell you if anything happened to him." "I'm listening." "The man who paid Raymond to follow your wife. Raymond kept a record. Names, dates, payments. He was paranoid, always afraid someone would betray him. Kept evidence on everyone he worked with." "Where is this evidence?" "A storage unit. I have the key. I'll give it to you, but you have to promise me something." "What?" "My brother was a bad man who did terrible things, but he didn't plan to kill your wife. He was supposed to scare her, that's all. The person who hired him, they're the real monster. Promise me you'll find them. Promise me Raymond's death won't let them escape justice." "I promise." "Good, I'll text you the address." The line went dead. Ethan looked at Alexander. "We're going to need a lawyer." 2 hours later, they stood in front of a dingy storage unit in South Boston. Patricia Price, a small, tired-looking woman in her 60s, handed Ethan the key. "I'm sorry," she said, "for what Raymond did, for all of it." Ethan took the key without responding. He wasn't ready to forgive, might never be ready. They opened the unit. Inside was chaos. Boxes of papers, old furniture, random junk, but in the back, a locked filing cabinet. Alexander brought bolt cutters from his car. They broke the lock. The files inside were meticulous. Years of Raymond's dealing, names, dates, transactions, evidence that could put dozens of people in prison. And there, in a folder labeled HM Job, they found it. Emails, bank transfers, detailed instructions. "Follow Hannah Morrison Cole, make her afraid. Don't hurt her physically, just scare her into compliance. She needs to understand that certain people don't forget debts." The emails were signed with initials. MT Marcus Thompson, Alexander breathed. Raymond's old associate, the one arrested with David in that drug raid 13 years ago. Ethan's hands shook as he read through the emails. What debt? Hannah didn't owe anyone anything. Alexander kept reading, then stopped, his face going pale. Oh God, what? It wasn't Hannah's debt. It was David's. And apparently before David died, he told Marcus Thompson that if anything happened to him, Hannah had money. A rich family who would pay to protect her. The Grants. David sold her out, told his dealer that Hannah could get the money if they pressured her enough. Ethan's vision went red. Even dead, David was destroying lives. Even in the grave, his poison reached out and touched everyone Hannah loved. Marcus Thompson, Ethan said. Where is he now? Alexander pulled out his phone and made a call, spoke quickly to someone, hung up. He's in Florida, has been for years, living under his mother's maiden name. Clean record since the arrest 13 years ago. Not clean. He hired someone to terrorize my wife. That led to her death. Can we prove it? Alexander asked the lawyer who'd accompanied them. The woman, sharp-eyed, ruthless, read through the documents. Yes, these emails are damning. Combined with the bank transfers and Raymond's previous confession, we have a strong case for conspiracy to commit assault, possibly felony murder, depending on the prosecutor. Get him, Ethan said. I don't care what it costs, get him. Already on it, Alexander said. 3 months later, Marcus Thompson was arrested in Miami, extradited to Massachusetts, charged with conspiracy to commit assault, extortion, and felony murder. His lawyer tried to claim Raymond Price had acted alone, that the emails were fabricated, that his client had nothing to do with Hannah's death. But the evidence was overwhelming. The paper trail was too clear. Raymond's sister testified. The bank records were irrefutable. Marcus Thompson was convicted, sentenced to 25 years to life. Ethan attended the trial every day, sat in the gallery and watched the man who'd set Hannah's death in motion squirm under questioning, watched him lie, watched him get caught in those lies. When the verdict was read, Ethan felt nothing, no relief, no satisfaction, just emptiness. Hannah was still gone. Lily still had no mother. And now they knew the truth. She died because David, even in death, couldn't stop hurting people. That night, Ethan sat in Lily's room and watched her sleep. 9 years old now, growing up so fast, she had Hannah's smile and eyes that saw too much. She deserved better than this legacy of pain. His phone lit up with a message. Victoria, it's over, you can rest now. But it wasn't over, because there was still one letter unread, one truth still hidden. Lily's 18th birthday letter. The one Hannah wrote for her daughter, the one that contained things even Ethan hadn't been told. He pulled it from his desk drawer where he'd kept it safe, turned it over in his hands. Should he read it, or should he wait, let Lily discover her mother's final words when Hannah intended? The envelope was thick, multiple pages. Hannah's last words to their daughter. Ethan's phone buzzed again. Alexander, this time, whatever you decide about the letter, we support you. But Ethan, maybe Hannah's secrets have caused enough pain, maybe some truths should stay buried. But Ethan thought about the last 9 months, all the secrets uncovered, all the lies exposed. The pain, yes, but also the healing, knowing Victoria and Alexander, understanding Hannah's journey, finding justice for her death. Would they have any of that if the secrets had stayed buried? He opened the envelope. Inside, Hannah's handwriting filled pages and pages. This wasn't a letter. It was a confession, a manual. A guidebook. Lily, there are things I need you to know. Things about darkness and addiction and how to recognize danger before it destroys you. Hannah had written her daughter a warning. A detailed account of every red flag she'd missed with David. Every manipulation tactic. Every lie. Every sign of danger she'd ignored because she wanted love so badly. Don't be like me, Lily. Don't ignore your instincts because you want to believe someone loves you. If someone makes you feel small, leave. If someone lies, leave. If someone hurts you and then apologizes, leave. Don't wait, don't hope, don't try to fix them, just leave. Page after page of brutal honesty. Hannah describing David's abuse in detail, the emotional manipulation, the financial control, the isolation from friends and family, the threats, the fear. I stayed too long because I thought I could save him, because I thought my love would be enough. But Lily, you can't love someone into being healthy. You can't fix someone who doesn't want to be fixed. And staying in that situation doesn't make you loyal, it makes you a victim. Then Hannah shifted to her relationship with Ethan. I kept secrets from your father because I was ashamed. Ashamed I'd loved someone who hurt me. Ashamed I'd failed. Ashamed I'd pushed away people who loved me. But secrets are poison, baby girl. They eat you from the inside. They make you sick. They keep you from real intimacy. When you love someone, really love them, you have to trust them with the truth, all of it. The ugly parts, the shameful parts, the parts you wish you could erase. Because love built on lies is a house built on sand. It will crumble eventually. I failed at this with your father. By the time I found the courage to tell him the truth, it was too late. Don't make my mistake. Be braver than I was. Trust the people who love you with your whole self. The letter continued with advice about family, forgiveness, strength, independence. Hannah's hopes for Lily's future, her regrets about the past, her absolute unwavering love. The final page made Ethan's chest ache. I know your father will read this letter before you do. I'm counting on it, because there are things I need him to know too. Ethan, if you're reading this, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to tell you the truth while I was alive. I'm sorry I let shame control me. I'm sorry I built our marriage on a foundation of secrets. But I need you to know, loving you was the easiest, truest thing I ever did. You were my safe harbor, my peace, my home, every smile, every laugh, every quiet moment that was real. The love was real even when the history was hidden. Please don't let my mistakes poison Lily's understanding of love. Show her what real love looks like, trust, honesty, partnership. Be the example I couldn't be. And please, please forgive me. Not for my sake, I don't deserve it, but for yours, because carrying anger and betrayal will eat you alive the same way shame ate me. Forgive me so you can be free. I love you. I loved you from the moment we met. I'll love you beyond death. You were the best part of my life. Take care of our girl. Show her how to be strong. Show her how to be honest. Show her how to love without fear. And when she's ready, when she's old enough to understand, give her this letter. Let her learn from my mistakes. Let my pain protect her from making the same choices. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for giving me Lily. Thank you for being the man who made me want to be better. All my love forever, Hannah. Ethan set the letter down and stared at the ceiling. Tears streamed down his face, but he didn't make a sound, didn't want to wake Lily. Hannah had known he'd read this first, had written to him even while writing to their daughter. Forgive me so you can be free, could he? Could he forgive the lies, the secrets, the years of half-truths? He thought about the woman he'd loved, the way she'd held Lily as a baby, singing off-key lullabies, the way she'd laughed at his terrible jokes, the way she'd kissed him goodbye every morning even when she was exhausted. That woman had been real, the love had been real, the secrets had been real too, but maybe they didn't have to define everything. His phone buzzed, text from an unknown number. He opened it and his blood turned to ice. A photo. Hannah, but not a photo he'd ever seen before. Hannah with David, kissing, but the background was wrong. The clothes were wrong. This wasn't from 13 years ago when they were dating. This was recent, maybe 3 years ago, right before she died. And there was a message below the photo. She had more secrets than you know. Want to know who sent her those flowers on your anniversary? Want to know where she really was during those double shifts? The truth costs $50,000. You have 48 hours. Ethan stared at the phone. His hands shook. His vision blurred. No, this couldn't be real. Hannah had been dead for almost a year. Marcus Thompson was in prison. Raymond Price was dead. This had to be fake, someone trying to extort him, but the photo looked real, and that was definitely Hannah, definitely David. But David had been dead for 12 years, unless he hadn't been, unless that was the one secret even the letters hadn't revealed. Ethan's world tilted on its axis as 3 words appeared below the photo. David never died. Ethan's finger hovered over the call button. His mind raced. David never died? Impossible. He'd been to the funeral, identified the body, buried his brother 12 years ago. This was a scam, had to be, someone exploiting his grief, his doubts, his newly discovered wealth. But the photo, that photo looked so real. Hannah and David together, recent. He screenshot the message and immediately texted Alexander. Someone's trying to extort me, claims to have proof Hannah was seeing David, says he's not dead, need your help now. The response came within seconds. On my way, don't respond to them, don't pay anything, I'll be there in 20 minutes. Ethan paced his small apartment, phone clutched in his shaking hand. Every few seconds he'd look at the photo again, study Hannah's face, her clothes, the background, looking for proof it was fake. Desperately wanting it to be fake. But a small, poisonous voice whispered, what if it's real? What if there's one more secret? Alexander arrived in 15 minutes, Victoria with him. They sat at Ethan's kitchen table, this cheap, scarred table that had witnessed so many of his struggles, and examined the message. It's a deep fake, Alexander said immediately. Look at the edges around their faces. The lighting doesn't match. Someone took old photos and merged them with a recent background. You're sure? 99%, but we'll verify. Alexander made a call, spoke in low tones to someone, hung up. My digital forensics team will have an analysis within the hour. But Ethan, I need you to hear me. David is dead. You buried him. This is someone exploiting your pain for money. Who would do this? Someone who knows about the trust fund. Someone who knows you're vulnerable right now. Victoria's face was hard with anger. Someone cruel enough to weaponize your grief. Ethan sank into a chair. For 3 years, I thought I knew my wife. Then I learned she'd dated my brother, knew a billionaire family, carried secrets that killed her. And now someone wants me to believe she was seeing David's ghost. He laughed, a broken sound. How much more can one person's past hold? Hannah's past is done, Victoria said firmly. This is someone else's cruelty. Don't let them poison what you've rebuilt. Alexander's phone buzzed. He read the message and smiled grimly. The photo is definitely fake, created using AI within the last week. The background is from a stock photo site. Whoever did this is an amateur. The relief that flooded Ethan was so intense he felt dizzy. So it's over, it's just a scam. We'll trace the number, find who sent it, press charges, Alexander said. But yes, it's over. Except it wasn't, because even knowing the photo was fake, even knowing David was truly dead, Ethan realized something. He'd believed it, even for a moment. Had believed Hannah might have one more devastating secret. And that meant he hadn't truly forgiven her yet. Hadn't truly let go of the betrayal. After the Grants left, after the police had been called and reports filed, after Lily had been picked up from Mrs. Chen's and put to bed, Ethan sat alone in the dark. He pulled out Hannah's letter again, the one to Lily, the one that ended with words meant for him, Forgive me so you can be free. He'd been carrying this anger like armor, using it to protect himself from the vulnerability of loving someone who'd lied. But the armor was a prison. It kept him safe, but it also kept him alone. Hannah had made mistakes, had kept secrets, had built their marriage on a foundation that wasn't entirely honest. But she'd also loved him, had given him Lily, had tried at the end to tell the truth, had died on her way to freedom. Didn't that deserve forgiveness? Ethan looked at Lily's door. Behind it slept a little girl who carried Hannah's smile and laugh, who was loved by grandparents she'd never known existed, who had opportunities Hannah never dreamed of because Marcus Grant had loved her mother enough to provide for a child he'd never met. Hannah's legacy wasn't the secrets. It was Lily. It was the love she'd inspired in the Grants. It was the man Ethan had become while loving her. He picked up his phone and opened a new note, started typing. "Dear Hannah, I forgive you." The words sat on the screen, stark and simple, and as Ethan looked at them, he felt something shift in his chest. A weight he'd been carrying for months lifted. "I forgive you for dating David first. I forgive you for keeping the Grants secret. I forgive you for building our marriage on half-truths. I forgive you for being human, flawed, and afraid." Tears streamed down his face, but he kept typing. "I forgive you because I understand now. Shame is a powerful thing. It makes us hide the parts of ourselves we think are unlovable. It makes us believe that honesty will destroy us. You were wrong about that. I would have loved you anyway, but I understand why you were afraid. I forgive you because our love was real, because Lily is real, because the life we built, however imperfect its foundation, gave me the happiest years of my existence. I forgive you because holding on to anger is killing me the same way shame killed you, and I won't do that to Lily. Won't model that poison for her. So I'm letting go of the hurt, of the betrayal, of the what-ifs and the if-onlys. I'm choosing to remember the good, the love, the laughter, the quiet moments, the way you made me feel seen and valued and whole. Rest easy, Hannah. Your secrets are known, your daughter is loved, your legacy is secure, and I am finally free." He saved the note, didn't send it anywhere. There was nowhere to send it. But writing it, acknowledging it, releasing it into the universe felt like setting down a boulder he'd been carrying uphill. Ethan slept that night for the first time in months without nightmares. The next morning he woke with clarity. He called Alexander before even making coffee. "I want to do something," Ethan said. "Something meaningful with the trust fund, not just save it for Lily's college." "What did you have in mind?" "A program for women leaving abusive relationships. Housing, job training, counseling, legal aid, everything Hannah needed when she left David but was too ashamed to ask for. I want to make sure other women don't have to choose between danger and homelessness." Silence on the other end. Then Alexander's voice, thick with emotion. "That's perfect. That's exactly what my father would have wanted." "The Hannah Morrison Recovery Initiative," Ethan said, "not hiding her past, using it to help others. I'll start the paperwork today. We'll fund it through the foundation, make it permanent. And I want to tell Lily, not everything, she's still too young for the details about David, but the basics, that her mom knew the Grants before she met me, that she kept it secret because she was scared, that she was human and made mistakes. Are you ready for that conversation? If you're not subscribed yet, now is the time, because what happens next is the moment we've all been waiting for. Moment when a father shows his daughter that love is stronger than secrets, and that honesty is the greatest gift we can give the people we love. "I'm ready," Ethan said. That evening after dinner, Ethan sat Lily down in the living room. She looked at him with those two wise eyes, already sensing something important was coming. "Lily, I need to talk to you about Mom, about some things you don't know." She nodded solemnly. "Okay, you know how you visit Grandma V and Uncle Alex on weekends?" "Yeah. I love them. Well, Mom loved them too. She knew them before she met me. They were like family to her when she was younger." Lily's eyes widened. "Really? Why didn't she tell us?" "Because she was scared. She'd made some mistakes when she was younger, dated someone who wasn't very nice to her, and she pushed the Grants away because of it. Then when she met me and we got married, she was afraid I'd be mad that she hadn't told me about them from the beginning." "Would you have been mad?" Ethan considered this. Honest answer, maybe at first, But I would have gotten over it. I would have understood because I loved her. Then why didn't she just tell you? Because sometimes when we're scared, we don't make the best choices. We hide things instead of trusting the people who love us. And the longer we hide them, the harder it gets to tell the truth. Lily processed this. Is that why Grandma V cries sometimes when she talks about Mom? Yeah, baby. Grandma V missed Mom for a long time. They lost touch, and then Mom died before they could be friends again. That's sad. It is, but you know what? Mom left letters. She wanted us to know the truth eventually. She wanted you to know about the Grants, to love them and let them love you. So even though she couldn't tell us herself, she made sure we'd find out. Mom was smart, Lily said. She was, and brave. Even when she was scared, she tried to do the right thing. Lily was quiet for a moment. Then, Daddy, do you have secrets? The question caught him off guard. Not anymore. I used to hide how scared I was about money, about whether I could take care of you by myself. But now I tell people when I need help. I tell Grandma V and Uncle Alex when things are hard, because Mom taught me that secrets hurt more than the truth. I don't have secrets either, Lily announced. Well, except I ate 2 cookies yesterday instead of 1, but that's a small secret. Ethan laughed and pulled her into a hug. That's a very small secret, and thank you for telling me. She hugged him back, fierce and tight. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, baby. That night, Ethan texted Victoria, told Lily she understands, she wants to know more about Hannah's time with you. Can she visit this weekend? Maybe you could show her photos, tell her stories. Victoria's response came immediately. We'd be honored. I'll make her favorite cookies. And Ethan, thank you for trusting us with this, for letting us be part of her life. You already are part of her life, your family. The weekend visit was everything Ethan had hoped for. Victoria showed Lily photo albums from Hannah's early 20s. Hannah at the Grants' dining table, laughing, Hannah in the garden planting roses, Hannah with young Alexander, both of them making silly faces. Lily studied each photo with intense focus. She looked so happy, she said. She was happy here, Victoria confirmed. She was loved. Why did she leave? Victoria chose her words carefully. She fell in love with someone who wasn't good for her. Sometimes we make choices based on our hearts instead of our heads. Your mom's heart was big and kind, and she wanted to help someone, but she couldn't, and it took her a long time to realize that. The person who wasn't nice to her, Lily said, the one Daddy mentioned. Yes, I'm glad she left him. I'm glad she found Daddy instead. Me too, sweetheart, me too. Alexander joined them for lunch, fancy sandwiches that Lily proclaimed better than McDonald's, and told stories about Hannah teaching him to cook. She made the best grilled cheese, Alexander said, simple but perfect. She said the secret was butter on the outside of the bread and patience. Not too high heat or it burns, just medium, slow and steady. Can you teach me? Lily asked. Absolutely. They spent the afternoon in the Grants' enormous kitchen, making grilled cheese sandwiches. Lily stood on a step stool, carefully spreading butter while Alexander supervised. Victoria took photos. Ethan watched from the doorway, his chest tight with gratitude. This was Hannah's real legacy, not the secrets or the lies, but the connections she'd created, the love she'd inspired, the family she'd brought together even after death. 6 months passed. The Hannah Morrison Recovery Initiative opened its doors in a renovated building in Dorchester. 12 apartments for women fleeing domestic violence, on-site counseling, job training programs, legal aid, childcare. Ethan worked there 3 days a week, coordinating services. The other days, he worked at the Grant Foundation's main office, managing community outreach. It was meaningful work that honored Hannah's memory by helping others avoid her mistakes. Lily thrived, now 9.5, confident and happy. She spent every other weekend with the Grants. Called Victoria every Wednesday evening to chat about her week. Drew pictures for Alexander's office. She was loved and she knew it. The extortion attempt had been traced to a former associate of Marcus Thompson, someone desperate for cash, willing to exploit Ethan's grief. The man was arrested, charged, added to the list of people who'd tried to profit from Hannah's death. But Ethan didn't dwell on it, didn't let it consume him. He'd learned that some people would always try to hurt others. The key was not letting them succeed. 1 year after Hannah's death, Ethan organized a memorial service at the Recovery Initiative. Not a funeral, they'd already done that. A celebration, an honoring. He invited everyone who'd loved Hannah, the Grants, Hannah's old co-workers from the hospital, Sarah, her best friend who'd known nothing about the secrets, Mrs. Chen from their apartment building, people from the foundation, families who'd been helped by the initiative. They gathered in the community room Ethan had named the Hannah Cole Memorial Space. Her portrait, a smaller version of the one in the Grants library, hung on the wall. Ethan stood before the crowd, Lily beside him, and spoke. "A year ago, I thought I'd lost everything. My wife was gone. My daughter had no mother. We were drowning in debt and grief. I thought that was the end of our story. But then I learned something. Hannah had lived a whole life I didn't know about. She'd made mistakes I hadn't known. She'd kept secrets that changed everything I thought I knew about our marriage. I was angry, felt betrayed, questioned whether our love had even been real. But over this past year, I've learned that love isn't about perfection. It's not about never making mistakes or never being afraid. Love is about choosing someone over and over, even when it's hard, even when you're scared, even when you don't know how the story ends. Hannah chose me. She chose Lily. She chose to try to be honest, even when honesty terrified her. And in the end, she chose to leave us with the truth, even if she couldn't tell us herself. This initiative, this building, these programs, this community is built on Hannah's legacy, not the perfect version of her that I believed in when she was alive. The real version, the complicated, flawed, brave, beautiful real version. She survived foster care and loneliness and abusive relationships. She saved a man's life and made a family where she found one. She loved deeply and scared easily and tried so hard to be worthy of the love she was given. She was human, gloriously, messily, perfectly human. And if her story, with all its complications and secrets and pain, can help even one person find safety, find hope, find healing, then her life mattered. Her death wasn't meaningless. Her legacy lives on. Ethan's voice broke. Victoria stepped forward and put a hand on his shoulder. Alexander did the same from the other side. Lily held his hand. "Mom would be so proud of you, Daddy," Lily whispered. "Of us," Ethan corrected. "Of all of us." They unveiled a plaque on the wall beneath Hannah's portrait. Hannah Morrison Cole, 1985-2022. She saved lives, loved fiercely, and taught us that shame has no power over the truth. May all who enter here find the safety and support she wished she'd accepted. May her mistakes light the path for others. May her memory be a blessing and a lesson. The crowd applauded. Several women were crying, women who'd found refuge in the apartments upstairs, women who understood intimately what Hannah had survived and why this place mattered. After the ceremony, people shared stories. A nurse who'd worked with Hannah talked about her compassion for patients. Sarah told funny stories about their friendship. Victoria described Hannah's kindness as a young woman. Alexander talked about grilled cheese sandwiches and feeling understood. Lily listened to it all, building a more complete picture of her mother, the good and the difficult, the saint and the survivor, the woman who'd made mistakes and the woman who'd tried to make them right. That evening, after everyone had left and it was just Ethan and Lily walking to their car, Lily asked, "Daddy, do you think Mom can see us from heaven?" Ethan looked up at the darkening sky, stars beginning to appear. "I don't know, baby, I hope so. If she can, she's happy, because we're happy, right?" Was he happy? Ethan took inventory. He had meaningful work, a daughter who was thriving, a found family in the Grants, a purpose bigger than himself, financial security, peace. "Yeah, baby, we're happy. Good, because Mom's letter said to take care of you, and I think I'm doing a good job." Ethan laughed through sudden tears. "You're doing an excellent job." They drove home through Boston streets, past the hospital where Hannah had worked, past the Grant mansion on Beacon Hill, past the old apartment where they'd struggled together, past all the places that held memories of a complicated, beautiful life. 2 years after Hannah's death, Ethan stood in the Grants' library, that room he'd first entered with fear and anger and confusion, the room with Hannah's portrait watching over everything. Alexander sat across from him, older now, more gray in his hair, but eyes still sharp. "The initiative is thriving," Alexander said. "We've helped over 200 women in 2 years. 7 women have gone back to school. 15 have found permanent housing. 3 have started their own businesses. Hannah would be so proud, Ethan said. She'd be proud of you. You took your grief and built something beautiful. Ethan looked at the portrait. Hannah smiled down at them, forever young, forever hopeful. I've been thinking, Ethan said, about expanding, opening a second location, maybe in Worcester or Springfield, somewhere outside Boston where resources are scarce. I think that's an excellent idea. The foundation can fund it. Not just the foundation. I want to fundraise too, get the community involved, make it bigger than us. Alexander smiled. You sound like my father. He always said the best legacy is one that grows beyond yourself. He was a wise man. He would have loved knowing you. Would have loved seeing what you and Lily have become. I wish I'd known him. Wish I'd had the chance to thank him for loving Hannah when she needed it most. You're thanking him every day by taking care of his granddaughter, by honoring Hannah's memory with truth instead of pretending she was perfect, by building something that will outlive all of us. They sat in comfortable silence. Then Ethan asked something he'd wondered about for years. Do you ever resent her for leaving? For choosing David over your family? Alexander considered this. I did. For a long time I was angry, felt betrayed. But then I realized she was 23, traumatized, desperate to be loved. She made the best choice she could with the tools she had. And when it didn't work out, she was too ashamed to come back. That's not betrayal, that's being human. You've forgiven her. I've understood her, which is better than forgiveness. Forgiveness implies she did something to me. Understanding means I see why she did what she did, even if it hurt. Ethan thought about this, understanding versus forgiveness. Maybe that's what he'd been doing too, not just forgiving Hannah's secrets, but understanding why she'd kept them. Thank you, Ethan said, for not giving up on her, for searching for us, for loving Lily even though you'd never met her mother again. She's family, that's what family does. Upstairs, they could hear Lily laughing with Victoria. They were baking something, cookies probably. The house smelled like vanilla and butter. She's so much like Hannah, Alexander said. That laugh, the way she tilts her head when she's thinking, the kindness, but braver, more honest, because she's learning from Hannah's mistakes instead of repeating them. That's the best legacy anyone can leave, not perfection but lessons. That evening, Ethan drove Lily home. She chattered about the cookies, snickerdoodles, and how Grandma V let her crack all the eggs. Daddy. She asked as they pulled into their apartment complex, nicer now, safer, but still modest. When I'm older, can I work at the initiative, help people like you do, if you want to, but you can be anything you want, Lily, doctor, artist, astronaut, anything. I know, but I think I want to help people, like Mom did when she saved Uncle Alex's grandpa, like you do now. Ethan's chest swelled with pride. Then you'll be amazing at it. Will you tell me more about Mom? The real stuff, not just the nice stuff. How much more do you want to know? Everything, when I'm old enough. I want to know the mistakes so I don't make them. I want to know the hard parts so I know it's okay to struggle. I want to know the real person, not the fairy tale. Ethan pulled into their parking spot and turned to face his daughter. 10 years old now, on the cusp of adolescence, already so wise. Deal. When you're ready, I'll tell you everything. The good, the bad, the complicated. All of it, promise, promise. They walked upstairs hand in hand. Inside their apartment, Ethan made dinner, grilled cheese, Hannah's recipe, butter on the outside, and patience, while Lily did homework at the kitchen table. Normal, simple home. His phone buzzed. Text from Victoria. Lily left her backpack. I'll drop it off tomorrow. And Ethan, thank you for sharing her with us. You've given us the greatest gift. He texted back, thank you for being family when we needed it most. We love you. Because that was the truth Hannah's death had taught him. Family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up, who stay, who love you through the mess. The Grants had shown up, had stayed, had loved Lily and Ethan through secrets and grief and confusion, had become the family Hannah had been too ashamed to let herself need. That night after Lily was asleep, Ethan sat at his desk and pulled out a journal. He'd been writing in it for 2 years now. Letters to Hannah, updates on their lives. Conversations with the wife he'd never get to have those conversations with in reality. Dear Hannah, he wrote, Lily asked to know everything today. The real you, not the sanitized version. I said yes. I hope that's okay. I think you'd want her to learn from your story, the whole story, because you were right, secrets are poison. But truth, even difficult truth, sets us free. You tried to tell me that at the end. I just wish you'd lived long enough to experience that freedom yourself. We're okay. Better than okay, the initiative helped 5 more families this month. Lily is thriving, the grants are wonderful, and I am finally at peace. I hope you are too. All my love, Ethan. He closed the journal and looked at the photo on his desk. Hannah smiling, holding newborn Lily, happy, tired, perfect. Rest easy, he whispered. We're going to be okay. And they were. 5 years after Hannah's death, the Hannah Morrison Recovery Initiative had expanded to 4 locations across Massachusetts. Hundreds of women and children had found safety within its walls. Dozens had rebuilt their lives. The program had been recognized by the governor, featured in national news, replicated in other states. Lily was 14 now, volunteering at the initiative on weekends, helping with childcare, tutoring kids, organizing donation drives. She wore a necklace with her mother's picture in a locket, the real Hannah, not idealized, but loved completely. Ethan had published a book. Hidden in plain sight, a husband's journey through his wife's secret past. It was honest, raw, painful. It talked about Hannah's relationship with David, her struggles, her secrets, her death. But it also talked about forgiveness, understanding, and building legacy from loss. The book became a bestseller, not because people wanted gossip, but because they saw themselves in Hannah's shame, in Ethan's journey from betrayal to understanding, in Lily's grace as she learned her mother was human. Ethan donated all proceeds to the initiative. On the 5th anniversary of Hannah's death, they held another memorial. Bigger this time, the mayor came, the media, families helped by the program, the grants, of course, now practically Lily's second parents, but the most meaningful part was quiet. Just Ethan, Lily, Victoria, and Alexander at Hannah's grave. They'd upgraded the headstone with trust fund money. Simple but beautiful. Hannah Morrison Cole, beloved wife, mother, daughter, friend, she saved lives and inspired legacies. Her truth freed others, her love endures. Lily placed roses, grown in Victoria's garden, the same garden where Hannah used to plant flowers 2 decades ago. The cycle complete. I miss her, Lily said, even though I barely remember her. I miss the mom I could have had. Me too, baby, Ethan said. But I'm grateful too, for Grandma V and Uncle Alex. For the initiative, for knowing the truth. Mom's mistakes gave us all of that. Victoria wiped tears. She'd be so proud of you, Lily, so proud of the woman you're becoming. I hope so. I'm trying to be brave like she finally was, honest from the start, not just at the end. They stood together in the cemetery, this patchwork family built from loss and truth and love. The sun set behind them, casting long shadows. Should we go? Alexander asked gently. 1 more minute, Ethan said. Knelt beside the grave and placed his hand on the cool marble. We're okay, Hannah. I kept my promise. Lily knows the truth. She's loved, she's strong, she's everything you hoped she'd be, and she knows you weren't perfect, knows you struggled and made mistakes and were afraid, but she loves you anyway. We all do. Rest easy. Lily knelt beside him. Bye, Mom. Thank you for being brave enough to leave the letters. Thank you for being human. I love you. Victoria and Alexander added their own quiet goodbyes. Then they walked together to the parking lot, leaving Hannah to her peace. And that's how a photograph in a mansion led a broken father to discover his wife's hidden past, find justice for her death, and build a family larger than he ever imagined. If this story moved you, hit that like button right now. Subscribe for more stories of redemption, justice, and hope every single week. And I have to know, do you think Hannah was wrong to keep her secrets, or did she do the best she could with the shame she carried? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Would you have forgiven her like Ethan did, or would the lies have been too much? I read every single one of your comments, and I love hearing your perspectives. Because here's the truth, we all carry secrets, we all make mistakes, we all struggle with shame. Hannah's story is about what happens when we let fear control us, but also about how love can transcend even our worst choices. It's about forgiveness, not just forgiving others, but forgiving ourselves. It's about building legacy not from perfection, but from truth. The Hannah Morrison Recovery Initiative is fictional, but the need it represents is very real. If you or someone you know is in an abusive relationship, please reach out. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233. Help is available. You don't have to carry shame alone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for witnessing Hannah and Ethan and Lily's story. Thank you for understanding that real love is complicated and messy and worth fighting for. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, be brave, be honest, and love without shame.